Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast for another week. It's a new moon week, my favorite weeks in some ways. For those of you who are new to Moonology and just starting to understand how all this stuff works, I'll tell you, there is a new moon once a month. Now, the last new moon we had was actually a new moon eclipse. Then we had the full moon eclipse, and now we are having just a regular garden variety new moon. But it's a really intense one, so I'm going to tell you all about it, and I'm going to give you some strategies for how to make the most of it. But let's just talk about, just for a second, about the fact that we are now out of the eclipse season. So if your life has been quite tumultuous in the past few weeks, that will be why, because we were in the eclipse season, we were in the eclipse energy. And the way I see it, we had the new moon eclipse took place in mid-October, the 14th or the 15th, depending where you were in the world, where you are in the world. And it was a very intense one. A bit about relationship reset, but also about power struggles. At the end of October, the 28th or the 29th of October, depending where you are in the world, we had the full moon eclipse in Taurus, which was in some ways a little bit less intense, but full moon eclipses are always a lot because they require us to move on from the past. So we've had a pretty intense month. Here we are, mid-November, and we have the new moon eclipse, and this time around it's taking place in the sign of Scorpio. Now, I am going to just read you a little something from my Moonology diary, which is the one for this year. And if you're watching this on YouTube, because we're now broadcasting this on YouTube as well as a podcast, I'm holding up my Moonology Diary 2024, which is so beautiful. Like, the 2023 is gorgeous. I think this is even more beautiful. It's got a black night, a kind of golden moon with a sort of goddess headdress on, and just generally beautiful work by Ali Vermilio, who also illustrated my Moonology messages cards. Anyway, so I'm just going to read you a little bit from the Moonology diary. So clearly 2023 wants to go out with a bang, not a whimper. Last month we had the eclipses, which I've just explained, and this month we have not another eclipse, but a really electric new moon. For a start, the new moon is taking place in the incredibly intense sign of Scorpio. Okay? And a little reminder, we all have Scorpio somewhere in our chart. I'm not dissing Scorpio. It's a very intense sign. But we all have it in our chart somewhere. That's how it works. And by the way, if you would like to find out where you have Scorpio in your chart, I have a free chart for that. You can go to moonmessages.com/free chart. So this new moon is taking place in the very intense sign of Scorpio, but moreover, it's taking place right alongside the planet of fire, drive, and determination, Mars, okay? We have the new moon at 20 degrees of Scorpio and then Mars at 22 degrees of Scorpio. In other words, pretty much the same place. It's 2 degrees apart out of a 360-degree circle. So don't worry if you don't understand that. Doesn't matter. All I'm saying is this new moon is triggering Mars, and Mars is the planet of drive and determination, but it's also the planet of anger. And it has to be said, again, we all have Scorpio in our chart somewhere, but Scorpio is the sign that holds a grudge. Can be a good time to break free of a grudge. As I've written here, Mars is the planet of fire, determination, and drive, and in ancient astrology actually rules the sign of Scorpio. So in a way, it's a bit like having a match next to a fuse. Expect life to be quite lively, especially in the lead up to and the day of this new moon. Okay, so just be aware of that as you go through, especially if you're listening to this on Monday. It kind of depends a bit on what else is going on in your chart. Like if you've got Pluto opposing your sun right now, and then we have this new moon, or if you happen to have been born in the last sort of 10 days of the Taurus period, or if you're born in the last 10 days of the Scorpio period, it does depend on how intensely you'll feel it, but we are all going to feel this to an extent. And it is potentially a time where even if you're not feeling it, you might have to deal with someone who is, okay? So be aware there's this kind of heightened energy in the air this week because of this new moon. As I say in the book, wait, there's more. Last but certainly not least is the fact that this new moon is taking place in a really intense clash with the planet of craziness and chaos, Uranus, okay, which is really the icing on the cake. So what we have here, just to sort of, paint the picture, we've got the new moon, which is always, I think, lovely, in the sign of Scorpio, which can be good for your sex life, it can be good for your spiritual practices, but it's taking place next to Mars, the planet of anger, which can be good because it could give you like a really fixed resolve, Scorpio being a fixed sign, a really fixed resolve to really start to go after your dreams. That would be one really good way to make this work, especially if you happen to work online. So it could be that, or it could be just anger and upsets and all that. So be careful. And then, as I said, to reiterate, it's taking place opposite Uranus. Now, Uranus is the sign of chaos and craziness and liberations and awakening. So to have the new moon conjunct Mars opposite Uranus is a really intense energy. I actually can't really overstate how intense that is. And one thing that could happen this week, which would be amazing, is it could translate as a sudden dawning of realization that you've been chasing after the wrong thing and now you're going to really go after what you want, and it's something completely different. You might liberate yourself from a situation that's been suffocating, or it could be there's a big turnaround in your life, because Uranus is the planet of turnarounds, in fact of radical turnarounds and radical change and radical awakenings and radical liberation. So by the same token, if you are stuck in something which does feel really limiting, so it could be in a relationship or a job or a flat share situation or whatever, where you're feeling really kind of hemmed in by everything, mind how you go this week, because it's going to be very easy to just go whack, get it all out of my way. Don't make any half-baked decisions. Don't go off half-cocked. If you're thinking of doing something major this week, if you can possibly resist the temptation, which is very powerful this week because of the new moon opposite Uranus, you might just go, you know what? Change now, next. Or you might, if you can control that impulse and you're like, I'm not really sure, am I just having a knee-jerk reaction? Try and breathe through it. So on the one hand, this is an amazing new moon to get yourself out of the doldrums. So if you've been in the doldrums, especially after the eclipse, if the eclipses knocked you sideways, it's a really good time to kind of, Scorpio is symbolized by the phoenix that rises from the ashes. So it can be a really good time to just decide, right, I am reborn, I am the phoenix. We are after the apocalypse. And it can be a good time to move on from being upset about anyone or anything. So from that perspective, just say someone did you wrong. Sometimes that happens in life, and it may well be because before you incarnated here, you and that person who's done you wrong had a soul agreement that he or she would do you wrong and you would respond in the most enlightened manner possible. So maybe you have done that, or maybe you haven't done that. If you haven't responded in the most enlightened manner possible, then now is a really good time to think, you know what? I actually think I could do better. I could evolve. Uranus, actually, which is so implicated in this new moon, is actually about evolution. It's about, I can leave the past behind. That was then, this is now, and I'm going to evolve. Okay. On the other hand, the energies really are a little bit out of control, so mind how you go. Now, that is the truth. The energies this week are out of control. Mind how you go, but it's one of those weeks where, like I said, we don't have an eclipse, but honestly, in a way, this is almost second best. So even though I'm saying on the one hand, well, it's no longer the eclipse season, we can all afford to sort of breathe out a little bit. At the same time, it's also possible that this new moon will feel like an eclipse. And if you didn't make the restart or the break or the evolution or get the wake-up call that you were meant to get in the eclipse, it might come now. The thing is that Scorpio holds a grudge. Okay, and again, we've all got Scorpio in our chart somewhere. Now is a really good time to release a grudge. If you have a grudge against someone, the only person that is hurting is you, okay? And I know sometimes it's extremely hard to forgive someone, but if you possibly can, I'm telling you, It will do you good. I know sometimes it's just galling to forgive someone for something that you think they've done, or that they've done, and you could be so angry with them and you just can't see how you can possibly ever forgive them. I'm afraid I'm going to have to trot out that quote again from Buddha. Are you ready? I know it's a tough one, but holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Doesn't that feel like, isn't that a paradigm shifter, that quote? And I know it's not easy, but this week, because of the energies in the air, because of the energies at the new moon, conjunct Mars, opposite Uranus, if you can see your way to forgiving someone for whatever it is they've done or you think they've done, you will prosper. You will benefit and prosper. All right, I just want to end by saying that we also have a really nice Mercury-Venus connection on November 15, which is brilliant for conversations, for emails that you have to write, anything you have to write to do with love or abundance, anything if you want to declare your feelings to someone, if you want to let someone know how you feel. 15th of November, pretty much wherever you are in the world, or get in early on the 14th as the energies are building. So that's that. And then also just note that this is a really good week for meditation, not just because the energies are a bit off the scale and crazy, which obviously makes it a good week for meditation, but also because we have a Mars-Neptune trine taking place on November the 16th or 17th, depending on where you are in the world. Have a good one, and I will speak to you next week. Thanks for listening.